Hi, my name's Jana, and I'm an admissions rep with Kansas State University Online. I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight to learn more about our personal financial planning programs. I'm joined by Dr. Elizabeth Kish and Morgan Graham. They're going to spend roughly the next 30 minutes giving us a presentation about this program. Throughout the presentation, we will be using the chat feature and answering questions as they are being asked. Some of your questions might be saved until the end of the presentation to answer. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Kish.
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Jana. Welcome to our event this evening. It's wonderful to have you all here. My name is Elizabeth Kish, and I'm a professor and also an extension specialist in the Department of Personal Financial Planning. And I'm here because I'm also the acting PhD program director. So I'm really excited for this round of applications, and I'm looking forward to recruiting our next cohort of students. And with me tonight also from the Department of Personal Financial Planning at K-State is Morgan Graham, who is our graduate academic advisor and is such a wonderful resource for all things graduate programs in our department.
Thank you, Dr. Kish. That's very nice of you to say. So welcome, everyone. I'm excited to have you here. I see people trickling in. I see some familiar names that I've already gotten to talk to. So I'm excited that you're here. Just to give you an idea of how we're going to spend our time tonight. So about 30 minutes of us just going over the program, important information that you'll want to know as you're looking at applying to K-State. We'll leave some time at the end for questions. Hopefully you get everything addressed that you want to know. But while we're getting started, if you'll just jump in the chat and help us get to know you. So let us know where you're from and when you're hoping to start the PhD program, you can just put that in the chat. But again, super excited that you're here and to get to talk to you tonight. So just want to kind of start out with just some background about the PhD program. So it is a PhD in personal financial planning. We're housed within the College of Health and Human Sciences here at K-State. So we have financial planning programs at all levels. So we've got undergrad, master's, PhD, and our kind of tagline for our department is head for business, heart for people. And so that's where you'll find us here in Health and Human Services, really in a service-based college. But looking at PhD, so it is a research degree, typically aimed towards students who are looking to advance their knowledge in financial planning and also develop skills in research and begin contributing to the body of knowledge within personal financial planning. And that can lead to a range of roles, and we'll look at what some of our alumni are doing. We'll look at that later, but that can be teaching at the university level. It can be leading research within a firm, or it can take, some different forms. We will talk more about the type of research being done here at K-State. So I promise we'll answer some questions there, but just some initial kind of brief facts about the program. So it is a 90 credit degree. There's an opportunity to transfer up to 30 credits towards the PhD. So we'll talk about how that can be done. Typical timeline, that's one of the questions we get asked often. So it's typically going to be about 3.5 to 5 years, but most students are going to land at 4 to 4.5 years for completion. How many students do we admit to the program for each cohort? So we typically keep that admission number low at 6 to 8 students. We'll talk some about, okay, what are we looking for in a candidate? But part of the reason that we keep that number low is because our faculty works so closely with our students. And so we keep that volume low so that students have a lot of opportunities for research, for publications, and direct support from faculty. All of our courses in the spring and the fall are 100% online. And so that allows a lot of flexibility for professionals who are established where you are. You're not necessarily looking to uproot and move to Manhattan, Kansas, where we're located, and complete your program on campus. So spring and the fall classes are 100% online. And then we do have a summer session for 2 weeks at the beginning of August for the first 3 years of enrollments. There is that in-person requirement. It's a really important summer session that students attend, not only to get a lot of really good information and begin building your research skills, but also to develop relationships within your own cohort, with faculty, and across cohorts, because there will be 2 other cohorts with you there each year that you're in person. So really important to build those relationship skills. I did my master's online through K-State, and so I know what it's like to do a degree from a distance. It's really easy to feel like you're doing it by yourself. And so building those connections with your cohort are really critical as you're starting out with a PhD program. So that is running through just a few quick facts really quickly. We're going to unpack a lot of these more, but I want to turn it over to Dr. Kish so she can talk to us about research. Again, it is a research degree, so she's going to tell you more about what we're doing with that here at K-State.
Great. On the previous slide, you may have noticed there was a phrase that the doctoral program is to prepare students with the knowledge, skills, and tools necessary to achieve success as college and university faculty and practitioners of financial planning. And for us, that really starts with a focus on research, and a PhD in general, but specifically ours is a research degree. And when we talk about research, we mean primarily peer-reviewed research. So research that would be published in journals in our field, and hopefully the top journals in our field. Also, perhaps some non-peer-reviewed technical reports, things like that, that are done on contract, perhaps. But primarily our metric is research that is ultimately publishable in a top-tier peer-reviewed journal. And to make that happen, we do have a rigorous program with our students about research methods and statistical methods, as well as just how to write a research paper. And that's really what by the time you're done, and by the time most of our students are done, they will have published at least one, but usually several manuscripts in our journals in the field. The topics that our faculty tend to focus on are really related sort of at that intersection between human behavior and money. Many of us are also very interested in the intersection between financial well-being and health. And then there's another sort of research stream within the department, the faculty within the department, that's about practice management and looking at what are the conditions that financial planners can use or create within their practices to be most successful. Again, our methods are primarily quantitative, but we do have some qualitative. I think all of us have done some qualitative research as well, so it's good to be well-rounded. One of our suggestions is that you go ahead and review our faculty CVs, and I don't know, maybe one of us, I'll put that in the chat in case you haven't seen it. And I did want to apologize or just make clear that even though I mentioned that we're very excited for our 2024 cohort, we're glad that those of you who are thinking further out are here as well. And so this is not just about people who are interested potentially in 2024. So otherwise, in terms of research or in terms of the faculty, I guess I would just say we come from a lot of different schools, although we have some overlap, less than maybe we had in the past. But that really also brings a richness in how we view research, in the methods that we use, in the topics that we're interested in, and the backgrounds that we have in terms of our own training, as well as then how we bring that forward with us as faculty advisors to PhD students. So I think we can go ahead and move on, Morgan. So here's a list. I'll let you take a little bit of time to look at that. Maybe I think it's kind of small. Hopefully you can see it, but about the different topics that we tend to publish in. These are recent dissertations and publications. And so I guess I would say also, while all of the faculty have pretty active research programs, we, with our own research interests, and we're very welcoming, I think, to have students join us in those projects. All of us are also very open, especially when it comes to a dissertation, in supporting PhD students as they pursue perhaps a topic that's very dear to their hearts or they're very passionate about. One of the things that I realized early on when I was a PhD student, the difference between those who finish and those who don't finish is they're really passionate about their topics, right? You think you might want to be pragmatic and choose a topic just because the faculty member does it, or you think it's a really, hot topic. But if you're not passionate about it, it makes it harder to finish. So we really do support students in the topics that they're interested in, as well as the topics, working with us in our topics.
Yep.
Did you, anything else?
I would just also add to that. So you mentioned that we've got a good kind of mixture in terms of background of faculty, and the same can be said for our current students that are in the program. So we have a lot of students, a lot of faculty who come from practice in financial planning. So they're CFP professionals, maybe CFAs, or other designations. They're working with clients, or maybe they're working on the back end. We have some folks who are working in research at their firm. We also have folks who are more on the academia side. So they're already teaching at an institution. And then we have some other, different backgrounds kind of mingled in there. And so, so for y'all tonight that are on the call, that may mean that you're in practice and you want to, I hear a lot of students say, I want to continue learning. I want to be able to teach, whether I want to teach right now or I want to teach as a second career once I retire. There's just a lot of motivations, a lot of backgrounds that our students and our faculty bring in. So next thing I want to look at here is just kind of an example of, okay, what does the timeline look like? What kind of classes am I taking? What am I signing up for? This is just, it is just a screenshot from a sample graduation plan that I have, depending on what device you're on. It may not be super clear right now. So if you want a copy of this, my email address is on here. You can email me. I'm happy to send you a copy of this sample graduation plan. But starting out, so, earlier I mentioned, okay, the PhD is 90 credits with an opportunity to transfer in potentially up to 30 credits. So I'm actually going to start at the bottom half of the screenshot that we've got right here with the core content courses and the elective. So 30 of the credits for the PhD will come from the core content. 18 of those are the CFP content areas. So if you're on the call and you've already got your CFP certification, then obviously we don't need you to repeat those. And then we have 12 credits of electives, which are typically going to come from our financial therapy courses. And I know there's a question about that in the chat, so we'll talk about that some more. But from our financial therapy courses or our advanced financial planning courses, or potentially some other electives that you might be interested in. So if you're entering the PhD and you've got a master's degree, so we'll start with the lowest number in terms of transfer credits. But if you're starting out with a master's degree, then that can transfer in towards the elective course requirement. So that takes out 12 credits or 4 classes that you would have to take. Any discipline for that master's degree can transfer in towards the elective courses. If you are starting with a master's in your CFP, then you would qualify for what we call a block transfer of 30 credits. And that's going to cover the core content and the elective course requirements. So just to repeat that, so if you have a master's and a CFP, then that would transfer in towards 30 credits, just leaving 60 credits left to complete for the PhD. So then moving up towards, well, actually, let me pause there. If you have a master's and maybe a different designation, or maybe a master's in finance, or whatever that may be, there's still an opportunity to potentially transfer up to 30 credits. We would just look at it more as a course by course transfer. And so there's just kind of more that we need to review there. But that's a good option that we see a lot of people coming in with, if you have a master's and a CFP. So moving up to the top then of this graduation plan, so you'll see with each academic year for us, it's going to start in August and or in summer, and for the PhD, summer is August, those first 2 weeks on campus. So starting out the program, these are the courses that are going to be fixed in terms of the timing that you take them. You'll progress through these courses. At the time they're listed, you'll progress through those with your cohort. So you'll see that in the summer, you'll have 2 classes, but really that's 4 credits. So the first course listed is a 3-credit course, and then 894 is repeated each summer for 1 credit. So 4 credits in those 2 weeks. So we keep you really busy. You're doing a lot of work, but you're also learning a lot. I had a student comment this past August. She's a 2nd-year doctoral student, and she said she just can't believe how much she learned in that time that she was on campus. And so you're keeping busy. But you're learning a lot, building really good skills while you're here. And then going into fall and spring, so defaulting to at least 1 3-credit class. That'll be across the full 16 weeks, fully online. You'll have Zoom meetings once a week with your course. And so again, you'll be progressing through those with your cohort. Moving down then to kind of the middle of that screenshot where you'll see the additional required research and professional courses. So these are courses that students are going to repeat, and they're going to be more fluid in terms of the timing that you take them. So starting first with PFP 900, that's a research seminar class. It's 1 credit that students are going to complete twice. Typically, the first one is going to be in that fall 1, and then the second one may be spring 1, fall 2, really kind of anywhere. That's typically where we see it. PFP 808, research application, you're going to hear us call that research cluster. That's a 3 credit class that students are going to complete 3 times. With the first cluster typically being spring 1. I've had some really ambitious first years this year, and they're taking it in their first fall. So there's some flexibility there, but typically starting out in spring 1, and then your second, somewhere in your second year, and then your third, typically in your third fall. So what you're seeing now is that your schedule is starting to stack up a little bit. And so you're going from 3 credits in the fall and spring to really 6 credits. So if there's an opportunity to transfer credits or start classes early, which I'll talk about later, that can be really beneficial because most of our students, actually all of our students, are working full time. You know, the degree is fully online. You get to stay where you are in the job that you're in. It's designed for working professionals. So we watch that closely when we're building graduation plans to see how many credits you're taking. And then the other classes that you're going to repeat. So you'll see PFP 999. That's some research hours, 21 credits of those. That's really going to be when you're focusing on your dissertation. So that's going to come in later with prelims. Or sorry, following the preliminary exam. And then PFP 990, it's a 1 credit course that you enroll in the semester that you propose for your dissertation. So that one's going to come a little later down the road. Sorry, I'm trying to decide if I'm going to address, I'll go ahead and answer the questions that I see coming through now for this one. So master's with a CFP and an AFC, how many credits would transfer? So in that case, having a master's degree in the CFP, that would qualify for the 30 credit block transfer. So all these courses that you see in that lower third of the screenshot, the core and the elective, those 30 credits would not be required. So you just have the 60 up here at the top of the research and professional classes. So once we're looking at that timeline, so we mentioned earlier, graduating typically in 3.5 to 5 years. So applying that timeline over here. So your courses that you're taking all the way leading up to your preliminary exam in your 3rd spring, or potentially your 3rd fall, depending on how we're able to work those courses out. I call that students on the as soon as possible track. So if you're trying to graduate as soon as possible, then there's an opportunity for prelims or comps. You'll hear that term interchangeably. Prelims or comps, your preliminary exams in your 3rd fall or 3rd spring. I'm sure there'll be more questions. I'm happy to answer those about the graduation plan, but I am going to move us forward for one other thing to consider. So if you're on the call and you know that you don't have a master's degree yet, or you don't have a CFP, so you're looking at, okay, I would need the CFP content, or I would need the electives. So you can do those while you're enrolled in the PhD program. And so where I was talking about stacking courses, and okay, now we're seeing, you know, we're going beyond 6 credits in a semester. We're looking at 9 credits or potentially 12, which students have done, and it can absolutely be done. But an opportunity that is available if you know you're going to need those classes or you just want them is to enroll either in the master's program or a graduate certificate ahead of starting the PhD program. If you need all 30, then starting with the master's would be the way to go. Or if you just need one or the other, then you can enroll in a graduate certificate. So the master's is going to be a combination of any 2 of these certificates that you see on the screen. So for the PFP certificate, 6 courses covering the CFP content makes you eligible for the CFP exam. Financial therapy. So I'll linger here for a minute. I know we had a question about, okay, what is financial therapy? That's something that is very distinct to K-State. It's something K-State's been doing for a long time and been doing really well. So financial therapy, I always just like to, in simplest terms, it's the human side of money. So if you're working with clients, if you're a financial planner, or maybe in some other capacity, we've had mental health professionals come through and finances come up. It's a big point of stress, and they don't necessarily know how to talk to people about that. Financial therapy is factors that are impacting client behaviors and client decision making. So it's really kind of two parts. First, it's looking at current literature and research around financial therapy. So understanding what's kind of going on behind the scenes when someone is in a financial planning situation or just looking at their own finances. I think we all know there are a lot of factors that go into how we relate to money. There could be shame, there could be fear, there are values that impact our decisions that we make. So financial therapy is saying, okay, what are people bringing into their relationship with money? And then once you understand that, it's looking at, okay, now how do we talk about it? What do we do about it? If someone has a barrier that's really preventing them from reaching their financial goals, how do we help them work through that? How do you talk about it? How do you have the hard conversations? The 4 classes that you would take with financial therapy. So we've got the intro class, money and relationships, we have applied behavioral finance, and then financial therapy theory and research. So that really plays into, again, kind of the heart of the research happening at K-State. So there's benefit in, if you need the courses, again, the certificate, there are 5 opportunities to start those classes throughout the year. You can start in January, March, June, August, or October. So if you need the courses, you can start those sooner, or they can also just help you build a good foundation and getting to know the current literature and research that's out there around financial therapy. And then the third option, the advanced financial planning. So if you already have your CFP or you want to push your financial planning skills even further. So 4 classes, advanced estate planning, retirement tax, and practice management. So I'm going to move into the application requirements, including the timeline. But one thing I'll go ahead and point out is that applications are due annually December 1 to start in the next August. And so you'll see there's that gap of time before you can start classes. And a lot of times people are ready to get going. If you're admitted, in February or March, you want to get started. You don't want to wait till August. So again, there's an opportunity to start these classes ahead of time. So looking at the application process and admission requirements, so an undergraduate GPA of 3.0 or higher, and we will collect transcripts from any institutions you attended for credit prior to K-State. All right, here's the big one, the absolute most asked question I get no matter what in all my year and a half, time at K-State. GRE or GMAT scores, they are required and they must be dated within 5 years of the application. There are no exceptions made to this. So I apologize in advance because I know that's not necessarily what we want to hear, but we do not make exceptions to this based on prior graduate degrees, based on professional experience. No exceptions. We do require the GRE or GMAT. You get to choose which one. But one thing I will say about that is that we don't have a minimum specified score for either of those exams. You're taking that exam as a way to measure readiness for graduate study. But when that's included with the application, that is reviewed within the context of the full application. So we don't have a minimum specified score. It's not necessarily a heavily weighted factor. And so, I'll get questions about, is this score acceptable? How does it kind of stack up against past applicants, current applicants? Really, as you're looking at those scores, if you're saying, okay, I took it, I don't know how I feel, do I want to take it again? If you feel that it demonstrates your capabilities and your readiness for graduate study, then stick with the score you have. If you don't feel it necessarily demonstrates what you're capable of, then maybe consider taking the test again. But again, no minimum specified score there. If you have taken it and you're considering retaking it, make sure that your official scores will be available and sent to K-State by December 1. That's going to be the most critical piece because it is part of the required materials. And unfortunately, I have seen applicants whose scores weren't ready in time and their application wasn't even able to be reviewed. The system won't even push it through for review. So make sure those scores are available by the deadline. So some additional requirements on the application. So a 2-page personal statement and a 2-page research statement. We do have guidelines on what should be included in that on our website. So make sure to go to, you can just Google K-State PFP, go to the doctoral page and look at those requirements. Those are posted. 3 letters of recommendation from current or former faculty, colleagues, other professionals. Again, looking for a statement that's going to demonstrate your capabilities to be successful at the graduate level, at the doctoral level. So looking for current or former faculty colleagues, whoever that may be, probably want to veer away a little bit from character references. They mean well, but really want to look at professional and academic references if you've got them. Again, wanting to make sure that that is sent by the deadline. So that's another one I've seen applications not come through because references didn't complete their portion by that December 1 deadline. So make sure you've got references you can count on that are going to be responsive, and keep an eye on them. Make sure those are done by the deadline. Resume or CV, you're going to upload a copy of that. And so then we've got a couple of commitments that are listed down here. So we're talking about, logistics. What are you including in the application? But now I want to kind of talk a little bit about, okay, well, what are we looking for when we're reviewing an applicant, when we're looking at making some offers for admission? So there are really kind of three characteristics that I would say we're looking at in a candidate. So first is definitely going to be research interest. So we talked about some of what we're doing here at K-State, what our faculty and what our students are doing. So yes, we are a financial planning department, so financial planning degree, but we're not necessarily doing research on the technical side of financial planning and, looking at certain strategies for, stocks and bonds and things like that. That's not necessarily the research being done at K-State. It's really going to be more on that behavioral finance, that financial therapy, kind of that human side of money, as we talked about before. That's really where the research is going to be. So we want to make sure that candidates have a research interest that aligns with what we're doing at K-State, because it's really symbiotic. We want to make sure that the research that students are putting out is in line with what K-State's doing, but we also want to make sure that our faculty are equipped to support you in the research that you're doing. And so want to make sure that that research fit is there. The second piece of it is going to be commitment. So we've got a couple of commitments that we indicate down here. Commitment to attend the 10-day on-campus residency here in Manhattan for first 3 years. Commitment to attending professional and academic association meetings, and really just commitment to the process. It is an online PhD. You're doing this from home and while you're maintaining your full-time job. So there's a lot of flexibility there, but there also has to be some really good time management skills, really looking for people that are going to be a self-starter that can really just stay committed to the process, because there's a little less accountability versus if you're on campus and in a classroom. So commitment to the process, commitment to learning, commitment to training, commitment to feedback, because you will get a lot of feedback from faculty who are training you as a researcher. And then that leads into the third piece, which is really going to be kind of collegiality, culture fit. I never do have a good simple term for it. But I mentioned earlier that we keep our enrollment very low volume. We admit very small cohorts, 6 to 8 people. We've talked about faculty support. Faculty are working closely with students, giving a lot of opportunities. So we want to make sure, culture is really important to us here in financial planning at K-State. We want to make sure that students are, working well with others, very supportive of other students, working well with faculty, again, very coachable, open to feedback, and really just willing to learn and be supportive and receive support. So I always tell students that we do have competitive admission, but we don't have competitive enrollment. We do have a very supportive environment here at K-State. So that's what we're kind of looking for in candidates. And again, we're also going to look at, quality of writing, quality of research statement, personal statement. We're going to look at references, we're going to look at scores, but it's all within context of the full application. And then again, just always underscoring that application deadline is December 1. That means all materials have to be in by December 1.
Morgan, could I
Yes, ma'am. Yeah.
Can we go back a minute? I just want to emphasize a couple of things about the commitments. So the 10-day summer residency is non-negotiable. So, and if it happened that you weren't able to come 1 year, then you would have to make it up the next year. So I just want to make that clear. And also, while this is it's a hybrid program, and the fall and spring semesters are online, they're not necessarily asynchronous. So there will be some times when students are expected to show up at a particular day at a particular time, either for class meetings or for the research seminar. So again, I think it's really important just to understand that it's not asynchronous at all, really. So, okay, thanks.
Awesome. Thank you for clarifying that, because that is a really important piece of it. Okay, So why K-State? I'm not going to spend too much time here because we've already talked about a lot of this, but we do have very, very committed faculty at the PhD level. The faculty to student ratio is, I'm always so bad at ratios. I guess it's very low, right? We have one faculty to a small number of students. So you're going to get a lot of really good opportunities and support with our faculty. They're very invested in you as students and as researchers. And really, once you enter the PhD program, our faculty are going to treat you like colleagues. They're going to treat you like peers and working with you on a lot of projects. Student and cohort support, again, just going back to that culture that we have here at K-State. It's not competitive student pitted against student, and it's a very supportive, a lot of collaboration happening in students within the same cohort and across cohorts and with alumni. So a lot of good student support. You also have a lot of staff support coming from me. So I'm the academic advisor. I work very, very closely with our students just to make sure that you have what you need, that you know what your plan is. If you have questions, you know where to go. So a lot of faculty and peer support. Okay, it is an online program. It's flexible. And so again, you're not having to uproot. You're not having to leave your job. All of our students are working full time. It's designed that way intentionally. And so what that means then in terms of what our students are bringing to the table is typically students are pretty established in their careers. You've been working in your profession for 5, 10, 15, sometimes 20 years, which means you have a lot of really, really good practical perspective. So you're not having to leave that job. You're not having to, leave where you're living and pick up your family and come to Manhattan, Kansas. But if you want to, we'd welcome you to. But you don't have to. And there's a lot of flexibility there. But again, just underscoring, like Dr. Kish said, that while there is a lot of flexibility, there is also a lot of structure. So important to maintain that balance. And then this program does set you up to be eligible for several professional designations. So for the CFP, the Certified Financial Planner, if you don't already have that, the AFC, the Accredited Financial Counselor, the Certified Financial Therapist, the FBS, Certified Financial Behavior Specialist. Of course, there are additional requirements beyond just our classes for each of these designations, but the classes do meet the educational requirements for each of these designations. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Kish.
Marvelous. So here we have a slide. I think it's important, and students want to know, and we're very proud, or potential students, current students, and as faculty, we're very proud of our current and graduated students. And so here's just a list of some job titles that we have. I think I don't see, I know we have one graduate who is a department head at a top program similar to ours. And then we have, so you can see, like, there's the academic route titles, but there's also more the business or the industry titles as well. And so we're very well represented in our graduates now. Our program is, let me think, 13 years. Maybe. I know we had our 10-year anniversary a few years ago. So in 10 years, we have produced really some fantastic PhD graduates. So if you want to go ahead and go to the next slide, we can show some logos of where people are at. So you can see we range from academic institutions, Texas Tech, a couple K-Staters are working in the department as faculty, University of Alabama, Texas A&M, Biola, and then also at the CFP board, and then some of the business employers as well. So we are, again, we're sort of within our field. When you go to a conference, usually there is a night where you meet and have dinner with people from your university, like the faculty and the current students and the former students, and it's always fun, and the purple grows. So we're excited about that.
If you ever see us, especially FPA, you'll see a lot of purple there. Always come up and say hi to us, but you'll see K-Staters at a lot of conferences. So I've already touched on some of the FAQs that we get, but there's a few more that I did just want to address. So cost of classes. So Our program it's fully online through K-State Online, and K-State Online just assesses just a flat rate. So there's no in-state, no out-of-state. If you're a domestic student in the US, if you're an international student, it's all the same rate. So the current cost right now is $661 per credit hour. That's posted through this current academic year. So that could look different in the future, but right now that's the current cost per credit hour. So you're looking at anywhere from 60 to 90 credits across the total degree. Obviously, an important question in terms of funding. So how are our students paying for their classes? So most students are receiving some form of tuition reimbursement from their employer, which is really helpful. We do have students who might be working full-time as a practitioner and they're teaching adjunct on the side, and that is a really good opportunity to get that teaching experience and also just some additional funds to cover courses. There are some scholarships available through K-State Online and the graduate school. I don't have details for those here. Those are best looked at on their website. So you can always look at K-State Online or the K-State Grad School to look at scholarships there. And then of course loans, that are always available. So I didn't mention necessarily any funding directly from our department. Currently there is none available, but we do always share funding opportunities that are shared with us. There are different grants and fellowships that students can look into, but a lot of times those are coming from external sources. GRE and GMAT, again, that is required. We've talked about that. And then applying, so you're just going to go to online.k-state.edu and click on how to apply, and you'll get the online application on there, and just always reinforcing it is due by December 1. So the timeline then, okay, so if I apply by December 1, then what's going to happen next? So December 1, everything's going to be due, and our PhD committee will begin reviewing those applications and inviting individuals for virtual interviews. Typically in February is what we aim for. Those interviews are generally pretty short, no more than about 20-30 minutes. So you don't have to expect it to be a long conversation or be nervous if it runs short. It's typically only about 20 to 30 minutes. And then from there, we like to make offers, hopefully in March, with students giving their decision by mid-April. So we ask students to commit by mid-April typically. That's a kind of a rough timeline. But that's typically what we're looking at. And so then that way, if you are admitted and you do accept that offer, then we will begin communicating with you throughout the summer so that you know what to expect coming into August. So we want to make sure you have all the information you need. So then in terms of, okay, I'm interested, but I have some questions. Everyone has their own unique situation, and I'm always happy to talk to you about that. I'm happy to look at a sample graduation plan and just answer any questions that you have. So you can contact me just at our department email address. You can contact K-State Online at their email address here, but I am always happy to meet one-on-one with anyone. Again, everyone has their own unique situation. So my Calendly is on here, so you can go on and schedule time for us to meet. Anybody is welcome to use that. I'll probably throw that in the chat here in a little bit as well, but just calendly.com/Morgan Graham KS. Yeah, Morgan Graham KSU. Happy to meet with you. Dr. Kish, before I move on, anything you want to add for questions that you've seen over the years that students ask you?
No, I guess I would say that in terms of the summer session, again, this is where Morgan is a whiz, but she has FAQs, she has information, especially for the first years, about how to approach coming to campus, because we know for many people, they've never been to Kansas before, let alone campus. So, and after the first year, well, even the first year, sometimes stay room together or get a Airbnb or whatever together, and then they, you just room together through your 3 years. So I mean, don't be apprehensive about that at all. I guess I would say.
Yeah, definitely want to make sure that you have all the information you need so that you can come in feeling as confident and as comfortable and as ready as you possibly can be starting out something new. A couple of other questions that just came to mind for me that I want to point out. So, a lot of times I'll talk to prospective students and they'll say, I've never really done research. I've never written, I've never been published. Is that okay? And the answer is absolutely yes. We don't expect you to be professional researchers coming in, or else you wouldn't need a PhD program to teach you how to be a researcher. So that is okay. If you've not done anything with research or stats in the past, that is okay. you're going to be trained on that at K-State. That's what you're coming here for. I did mention stats. And so that is something to think about. I'm going to jump back just a little bit back to our graduation plan, this tiny little footnote that I've got here. So if you haven't had any recent statistics classes in the recent past, I'll let you define whatever that is based on how much you remember. If you haven't had a class in the recent past or at all, there is a prerequisite stat class that we do recommend completing in the summer, and in this case, it would be June and July before coming to campus in August. You do not have to do that stat class through K-State if there's one through another institution that's close by or whatever is a good fit for you. But just something to consider, just kind of doing a little self-assessment of where you currently stand with stats and your comfort level. That is something that you may consider is taking that stat class as a prerequisite. So with that, now we're just going to open for questions from you. So I do see some in the chat. I'll start. Yeah, we can start looking through those. And yeah, if you have any questions, just drop them in the chat. Sorry, go ahead, Dr. Kish.
No, I'm sorry. And I just wanted to say about stats. I mean, I think it's a wonderful idea, especially if it's been a while or you haven't really been exposed. But when you think about a PhD program, for many of us, statistics is the hardest part. So, don't feel like you're going to end up that you have to come in even as an expert, like Morgan said. I mean, we all get through it. It may not be the part that we like the best, but we get through it.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so looking at some questions that we've got in the chat. So I see one about if you've passed the CFP exam, but you're not fully certified yet because you're still working on the experience requirement. Does that count for the credit transfer? So that does depend on if you have a master's degree or not. So if you've got a master's degree and you've passed the CFP exam, then there is still that opportunity for the block transfer. If you've passed the CFP exam, but you don't have a master's degree, you don't have any prior graduate credit, then there wouldn't be an opportunity for transferring there, but we might not necessarily have you repeat the CFP courses. We might have you do those 30 credits through the electives, so the advanced financial planning and financial therapy. So it does depend on that master's status. But if you have your master's and you've passed the CFP exam, then yes, you'll qualify for that block transfer. Let's see. Okay, I've got a question. How many hours are considered full-time? So at the graduate level, 9 hours or more is considered full-time. So that is important as well to consider with different funding sources, different aid sources. So most students are taking 6 credit hours in a semester, and that's considered part-time at the graduate level. Let's see. So for the summer session, it's always the first 2 weeks of August. And so that does always start on a Monday. And so sometimes it ends up being like July 31st, or I think even this year, I think it's like July 27th. But always the first 2 weeks of August starting on a Monday. And so the session itself, in terms of classes, that's going to run Monday through Saturday in the first week, and then Monday through Thursday in the second week. But typically students are going to travel on Sunday and Friday because Monday morning you're starting right at 8 a.m. And then Thursday we do have presentations typically through the afternoon. So if you're flying, then travel on Thursday may not work. So really your commitment timing wise is probably going to be Sunday through Friday. If anyone's already thinking of travel, what does that look like? You can either fly into the Kansas City airport and drive 2 hours to Manhattan, or you can fly into Manhattan's regional airport. That is an option as well. And that's just about a 10-minute drive over to campus. Okay, I saw a hand raise a moment ago. I'm not sure that we can actually call on you. So if you'll just put it in the chat. Oh,
well, I did see a name. Oh, but yeah, the person won't be able to talk though. So.
Yeah, it'll have to go in the chat. Okay, so we have a question. Will this recording be sent out? The answer is yes. So this will be recorded. You'll receive an email with the link to the recording. That may take a few weeks because they do have to do just some edits and kind of cut it real quick, and then it'll be sent out. So that will be sent probably in a few weeks to the email you signed up with. But I am happy to meet with you one-on-one. So feel free to set up that time. My Calendly link is right here. Typical class times. I can answer that or I can pop that to you.
I might take that. So the faculty have been talking about sort of standard class times and days. We haven't landed on anything, and I'm not sure that we will, because what's been happening and has worked more or less okay, I think, for 10 plus years, is that what the faculty member who's teaching the course and the students who are enrolled in it get together, and they determine a day and a time that will work for them. And keep in mind that Kansas is on Central Time, but our students are on all time zones, and we've had people in other countries as well, students in other countries. So yeah, we again, we've talked about having sort of standardized class days and times, but we don't at this time. And I'm not sure that we will. So
I see a question about the masters, and I think this is looking at transferring in, so asking if it's a general rule or if we look at the grade in class to get the 30 credits. So that'll depend on if it's a master's with the CFP, then it is just the block transfer. If it's a master's without the CFP, it will just default transfer 12 credits towards the electives. That's not a course by course transfer. If you have a master's in a related discipline, then that's when we can start looking into a course by course transfer that may give you anywhere from 12 to 30 credits. So happy to meet one-on-one to talk about that. So we do have a few questions about how many applications or how many applications we receive each year, what our admission rate is. I don't necessarily have a good range on the number of applications historically. But I would say our admission rate, depending on that volume, is anywhere from maybe 50 to 75% each year. Dr. Kish, correct me if I'm wrong.
Oh, I think it's probably lower than that.
Okay.
When you think about, we take 6 to 8.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we also don't have it's a little bit hard to answer because we have to think about COVID, right? And so that kind of push things in a different direction. So just know that we are happy to review all applications, and if you don't get in 1 year, some students have applied more than 1 year and ultimately gotten in. So we also do look at, Morgan was talking earlier about the scores and your your personal statement and your interests and your references, and all those things are important. And then we also do kind of look at sort of try to have a mix of those interests and backgrounds too, where people are coming from, so that it's not heavy on one sort of background. But yeah, the reason we keep our cohorts at 6 to 8 is that we find that then because there's really about, I don't know, 8 of us who are PhD faculty, maybe 8 to 10 who might teach classes, but not everyone will be is certified to direct a dissertation. And so we have to make it so that each of us has a manageable number of students so that no one has too many. And the other part of that is, while we have these timelines, we can never predict exactly when a student will be ready to have their proposal meeting for their dissertation and when they'll actually complete. And so we want to make sure we don't have that we can manage sort of the bulge of a bunch of students graduating at once. So that's kind of why we landed on 6 to 8 per cohort.
So additional questions I see coming in. When will admission decisions be made? So hoping to make admission offers in March, with students providing their decision by April, and committing to that admission. So how many in cohorts typically drop out or don't finish? I don't have a number, and I may, if you have a number you want to chime in with Dr. Kish, please go ahead. But one thing I do know, we've talked about this recently internally, is when we do have students dropping from the program, what is prompting it? Is it, have they had a bad experience with K-State or, anything like that, had trouble, with the material? And what we have found in looking at any students who have discontinued the program is that it's just been life circumstances, starting new jobs, family, changes in family dynamics, different things. It's really just been personal circumstances. And to my knowledge, based on what we've looked at historically, we haven't had anyone dropping just due to poor experience with the program. I don't know if you have a number that you want to, or a percentage you want to add.
No, I mean, I think it's low, but it's not zero. And so I think there's two different ways of looking at typically who don't the proportion of students who don't finish. As you mentioned, Morgan, there are the students who their personal lives just don't allow it, and we can be somewhat flexible. It's possible to sort of put things on hold a little bit, take a leave. I mean, we have to do it all by university policy, but those things are possible if your sort of personal circumstances change. The other group, though, who don't finish, are the ones who don't pass the preliminary examinations. And so I would say, we haven't had that many, but again, we do have some, and that's pretty typical for any PhD program. And so in that case, a student who maybe came in with a master's from another institution could still get a master's from K-State in personal financial planning. So it's, I'm not sure how many total graduates we've had. That's where we need our department head. He has all those numbers on the tip of his tongue. But so I mean, again, it's less than 10%, less than 5%, I would say, who don't finish because they don't pass their prelims.
Okay, so I see a question from someone who has their CHFC and an MBA. And so you are correct that the CHFC curriculum does overlap with the CFP curriculum. Where it gets dicey is that the CHFC is not done for graduate credit. And so if you don't have your CFP or have not passed the CFP exam, we'll need to talk one-on-one about what your transfer opportunities are. Because again, there's that overlap, but if we're doing course by course, it has to be at a graduate level. So I don't have a definitive answer for you tonight. I would want to talk to you about that further. So feel free to email me or set up time to chat, and we can look at that a little bit more. What are preliminary examinations and when does it usually happen? So that's a good question. I'm going to jump back to our graduation plan. So I've got that noted here in the third spring. So there are a number of courses that are prerequisites for the preliminary exams, or again, you'll hear us call them comps or comprehensive exams. So that is testing your knowledge of what you've done up to that point. And it is also what enters you into candidacy for the degree. So Dr. Kish mentioned that some people didn't finish because they didn't pass their prelims. You cannot advance to dissertation if you don't pass the comprehensive exams. So you're going to be tested in 3 areas: research methods, theory, and statistics. So again, everything you've worked on up to that point in your classes. And for us, prelims are done over 2 periods. So the first is going to be the written exam. So 3 days, 5 hours each in each of those areas I mentioned: research methods, stats, and theory. And then, so you'll do that over the course of 3 days. You have 5 hours for each one. It is, open book, open note, so to speak, but it is timed. So you need to be prepared ahead of that. And then those will go for review and feedback. And then a few weeks later, you'll meet for the oral exam, which is really, in its simplest terms, it's not this simple, but a conversation about everything you responded to in the written exams and an opportunity to clarify or improve upon anything you wrote before. Someone asked, how many times can you attempt the prelims? So you get 2 chances. So if you, let's say you pass your written exam, but you fail the oral exam, you can retake the oral exam. You get 2 chances, but if you fail after that second opportunity, then you are dismissed from the program. So they are very important. Dr. Kish knows these really well, so I jumped right in, but really she should be the one offering more information. So anything you want to add there?
Great description. I would say, so again, preliminary exams or qualifying exams or comprehensive exams, they go by a lot of names. They're very typical in PhD programs. Many times, so you take your coursework, that's the foundation. These exams then are testing you on, can you integrate across all the courses that you've done? Do you have the knowledge? Are you ready then, if you pass the prelims, are you ready to go on and start to become a more independent scholar, which is what you're going to demonstrate by completing your dissertation. So yes, you do get 2 attempts, and there can be a lot of different combinations. I mean, some students do really well on the writtens and absolutely bomb the oral exam. Some students are a little bit iffy on the writtens, but do great on the oral exam. So there's a lot of different combinations, and we have written policies on how much time in between the 2 exams and that kind of thing. For the most part, I think in this program, no, I guess I won't say that. I was going to say almost everyone does a retake, but I don't know that that's true, so I won't say that. Yeah. So there was a question about the publications that students, graduates contribute to, and I'm assuming that means what kind of journal articles or what kind of journals. So in our field, and you're going to have to help me out on the strictly financial planning ones, but the Journal of Financial Therapy, the Journal of Financial Counseling and Planning, Journal of Consumer Affairs, Financial Planning Review, and then there's one more financial one, right?
Journal of Financial Planning.
Yeah, Journal of Financial Planning. Those are pretty much the top 5 in our field. There's some others that are maybe a little bit more specialized. And so Morgan mentioned the research clusters. And so when you start out and you're early in your PhD student career, you might work on the literature review part of the research cluster or of the project that the research cluster is working on. Because typically the research cluster, the goal is either a product that will be a conference presentation or a journal article. And if you start with the conference presentation, then the goal would be to get some comments from the people at the conference and then do the revisions and submit it for publication.
And that's a good point that I forgot to mention about. So you heard Dr. Kish call it research cluster, like I mentioned before. So we're talking about this PFP 808, the research application. So class you take 3 times. And the goal of the class is to lead to something that can be published. And so one thing I get asked is publishing opportunities that students get. And typically when students graduate, they'll have been published anywhere from 3 to 6 times or potentially more. They're really busy, but 3 to 6 times, coming out of the program, you can look at being published. So I do want to be mindful of time. There's one more question I definitely want to answer, but if we have any final ones, definitely get those into the chat before we wrap up. But there was a question of about how much time you can expect to spend on classes per week. I would say budgeting 15 to 20 hours per class is probably a good range to expect. Obviously that can ebb and flow. Some weeks certain classes will be busier, some weeks certain classes will be a little bit lighter. It depends on the class, it depends on the project, but in the simplest number I can give you, I would say budgeting 15 to 20 hours per class. So if you're taking 2 classes, it could be more.
Yeah, can I just say the rule of thumb I learned is for an undergraduate class, it's 3 hours outside of class for every credit hour. So if it's a 3 credit undergraduate class, then you spend 9 hours. And for graduate level class, 4 hours. So if it's a 3 credit, like the 3 credit PhD classes times 4 would be 12. So I think you're right. And it just depends where you're at in terms of, and how you study and, things like that. But yeah, 15 to 20 is pretty realistic, I think.
Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and just start kind of wrapping us up, but if I see a final question come in, I'll do my best to answer, but want to get us out of here by the end of the hour. So if you have any questions, you're welcome to reach out to any of us. I will definitely mostly offer my own calendar the most because that's the only one I can say that for, but I'm happy to meet with any of you. So you can email me with questions or you can set up time. here on my Calendly. You will get a recording of this later. But if you want to grab a picture, screenshot, or anything, so you've got that. But feel free to reach out. I'm happy to meet with you at any time, answer any questions. If you're applying for 24, get that application in here in the next few weeks, and you'll hear from us after that. But if you're looking at future years, still feel free to stay in touch with us. We're here to help, here to answer questions. And if your goal is to get a PhD and you want to do that at K-State, we want to help you get there. So just don't feel free to reach out at any time. So, and thank you all again for joining us tonight.
All right, well, I'd like to thank Dr. Kish and Morgan for their presentation, and I want to thank everyone for joining us here tonight. If you're ready to apply, please visit our website at online.ksu.edu and select how to apply for detailed instructions. Finally, if you have any additional questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Thanks again, and I hope you all have a great night.